So we have Dr. VJ George, who is Joint Director in Disaster Management Institute, Bhopal, and he has a vast experience in trainings and development and various topics related to disaster management. Abraham, please mute your mic. Okay. So he has more than 30 years experience in this field, and we are thankful for him for accepting a request to become an academic counselor and provide his guidance, his support to IGNOU learners who are enrolled through EVB project of Government of India. So we welcome Dr. George to give his blessings and guidance and counseling to all the learners.
Okay, thank you so much. It is very nice to interact. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
I have actually tried to share my PPT.
It's sharing,
Welcome
sir.
to
It's
all of
sharing.
you. Okay, so hearty welcome to all of you to this interactive section. I am grateful to Dr. Smriti and IGNOU team for this opportunity to interact with you. This being the first section. I would like all of you to introduce yourself, and we can have a little introduction. And today I'll try to discuss about disasters and disaster management, and maybe I'll try to also discuss about drought management. So this is what I am proposing to do. But before we start, it will be nice to have an interaction. So I think there are 14, 15 of you who have joined, and this is post graduate diploma in disaster management. So can we have a little introduction? And
I want to introduce them.
Yeah.
Abraham Karya, please introduce yourself.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, my name is Ibrahim Lawal. Yeah, I'm from Kano, Nigeria.
Okay.
Okay. So what type of disasters you have faced?
Type of disaster that I have faced.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't have any encounter about any disaster before.
Okay. So what do you think? What do you think are the disasters? What do you think when you speak about disasters? What is that comes to your mind?
There is a lot of kind of disaster, like fire outbreak disaster.
Okay.
Water flood disaster.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
so many.
So many type of disasters are there, you are saying. So you have not personally experienced disasters, but you feel that these are disasters, and they may have to be managed. When we speak about disasters, is there any particular thing? Suppose there is a small fire, for example. There is a small fire in a particular place, and you have put up that one. Is it a disaster or is it an accident?
Actually, we can say it's a disaster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that is what you feel. Even whatever a small fire also, if it doesn't cause casualty, even then it is a disaster. That is what you are saying.
Like a small fire. Actually, this one is not a disaster, actually.
Okay, it is not a disaster.
Yeah, as far as my understanding is concerned.
Okay. So what will make it a disaster?
I think the things that make things to become a disaster is big things like maybe the fire outbreak, like I said before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fire outbreak, which is causing a lot of casualty and property loss, perhaps.
Absolutely.
So this could be a disaster.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think you are in the right direction. So let us proceed. Thank you very much. Can we have the introduction from the next person, please? Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Abdullah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go
Good
ahead.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes. This is Dumba Samuel from South Sudan.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So what is your experience of disasters, or have you any time experienced any disasters
Sure.
or managed?
Yeah, sure. In South Sudan, we have floods.
Okay, floods.
Especially in the Upper Nile regions. You know, South Sudan is divided into 3 regions: the Equatorial Upper Nile and then the Garagava region.
Okay.
So it is so common in the Upper Nile regions. Yeah.
So what happens?
At least it do occur every year.
What happens during a flood in your place? Are there many casualties, or are there many areas affected? Property loss?
Yeah, sure. Usually it leads to loss of, first of all, human lives.
Okay.
And then also properties, animals, displacements. Yeah. So usually you find that if it happens, people have to move, relocate temporarily to other locations until, yes,
they are
until
brought
certain
back.
time when it is off. Yes, and then they can come back. Yes.
And I think there are some seasons also. Perhaps there are some seasons for floods also. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. It does happen in certain seasons of the year.
Okay, so you have certain...
Mubarak Mana, please stop presenting.
Okay. So can we have the next person? Welcome. Can we have the next person?
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon. My name is Heraclit from Mozambique.
Okay. Welcome. So,
thank you.
Mozambique, what type of disasters you have experienced? Maybe the worst, what is the biggest disaster there in Mozambique?
The tropical cyclones recently, we were very hit by 2 very strong cyclones, which has I think you have heard about the Idai cyclone, Cyclone Idai, and the Kenneth.
Okay.
Yes.
So mostly you are affected by cyclones.
Sure.
And I think you may be getting some early warning before the cyclone. You may be getting some early warning.
Yeah, the government, they are working very, very hard on that, because every year we suffer for tropical cyclones.
Okay. So you have this cyclone as a major disaster, and you have early warning system, and some government systems are there in place to provide this information to likely affected people. Am I right?
Sure.
So you have at the central level also, and maybe at the provincial level also, you are having some kind of systems.
Yeah, the provincial level, they are trying, but the lack of communication in terms of device facility in rural area, it make it very strong to just to evacuate people who don't access to the facilities. Like I'm talking about communication devices like mobile phones and radio, because the early warning system is made through the radios. Some people they don't access to radios. They don't. Some poor people who in very rural or remote areas, they do not access to these facilities. So it's somehow very hard to these ones. So are most vulnerable people in that sense.
Okay, so you may also have some kind of cyclone shelters built by the agencies.
Yeah, it's there, but sometimes we use the public infrastructures
Okay.
to evacuate people in such situations. I mean, schools,
Okay.
maybe university, public universities infrastructure whenever cyclones occurs. But
Oh,
sometimes there is NGOs who really help the local people for the evacuation period, for the shelters, and accommodating them in safe place.
okay, very nice. So you are saying that apart from the government, there are also community, I mean NGOs and other agencies who
Yeah,
are closer to people
yeah,
who
sure.
work in this sector.
Yeah, because these disasters, they need a win-win situation, not only from the government. We know the challenge of financial challenges that I think government alone cannot afford to minimize the negative impacts of these disasters.
Okay, okay. Absolutely right. You are saying that basically it is everyone's business. Working for, I mean, working no for disaster risk reduction, disaster response, and other preventive activities. It is everyone's responsibility.
Yeah,
So
everyone
there
is
are,
must be responsible.
okay, wonderful, wonderful. It's very nice. So welcome. So let us have the next person introducing, please. Can we have the introduction from the other others who are joined, please?
Yeah, hello. I am Abdullah Suleiman from Bauchi State, Nigeria.
Okay, okay, okay. Welcome, most welcome. So Nigeria is again, I think, is faced with a lot of no disaster situations. Am I right?
Yeah, that's
What type
right,
of
sir.
disasters you have faced? Maybe most recently.
Well, we have just recently we have a natural disaster.
Floods. Okay. A lot of floodings take place in Nigeria, and you normally manage those. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah. So most welcome. Can we have the next person, please?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, my name
Yes.
is Mwansa Sugulwa from Zambia.
Hello.
Okay. Most welcome. Yeah.
So,
Can you say about your experience of managing disasters?
okay, yeah, in Zambia, we actually run through the mantle of saying disaster management is everyone's responsibility. So
Okay.
it takes the government, the community, and everyone, the NGOs, stakeholders,
Mm-hmm.
everyone comes on board when there's a disaster to try and help mitigate and also to reduce on the effect of the disaster.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have spoken about disaster management and the agencies who are involved, and also you spoke about mitigation. Means likely impact can be reduced if you take up certain measures. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
So that is another important concept in disaster management. That is mitigating the impact of disasters. If you take up measures like structural or non-structural mitigation measures, you are
Mm-hmm.
able to reduce the impact of disasters. That is an important pre-disaster management activity. So I'm very glad that you are aware of all these things, and I extend a very hearty welcome. So let us have the next person introducing, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning. Good morning. Most welcome.
Here, my name is Rabi Idris from Nigeria.
Okay. Tell me about your experience of managing disasters, or what do you know about disasters and disaster management?
Okay. Actually, I was experiencing some kind of disaster like here in my own town here. There was a
Okay.
time. There will be fire outbreak in just at the HO at the border of our towns. So there are many power outbreak, like from today to day, like after a week, then another week, you will see something will happen. So I experienced that kind of disaster, and we trying to find out what cause of that problems. For example,
Okay.
you find a you will find fire outbreak this week, and the next coming week you'll find it adjacent to the other side at the edge of the town. So at the end, so those that have saying and that particular region, so they gather up to know what caused that problems, what caused that problem, what is the causes of that the kind of fire outbreak, and it is kind of like disaster because it used to happen, it is suddenly happen, immediately happen after a week, like that.
So you are saying that there are recurrence of disasters. No, a lot of very often various type of disasters are taking place, especially the fire events.
Okay.
Okay. So you are saying that there are a lot of disasters which are taking place on a frequent basis.
Okay. Also, from this rain season that has just passed, in this area, we encounter a lot of flooding, and it is as I heard in some newspaper like that, in the radio, in the social media like that, there are a lot of even flooding in the other countries like that. Here in Nigeria, we experience that, and government is trying to do something to those that encounter in that kind of disaster. Particularly flooding is very, 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 what am I going to say? It is very, very painful for you to lose your house and your properties. Water will overflow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I understand. So there are a lot of disasters, even the floods are there, and which brings in a lot of destruction. No, these disasters are bringing in a lot of destruction, and sometimes also loss of life and property, and even household and items and all that.
Yes, sir.
That is true. Actually, disasters have what huge impact, like economic impact, emotional, social impact. So, and psychologically also people are affected. So you are very right, and I think we need to work towards mitigating, or wherever it is possible, we should try to prevent disasters.
Yes, sir.
So it is a very wonderful perspective you are having about disaster management. I welcome you to this course, and look forward to I will be having some interaction with you further. So thank you very much. So let us have the next person. Next person who is introducing, who is left.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So those who have introduced, please put off your mic, and so that there is no disturbance. Okay.
My name is Mohammed Tijani from Nigeria.
Okay. Tijani, tell me about your understanding of disasters.
Okay, actually, few months ago during the rainy season, there was a devastating flood around us here. So it actually caused a lot of damages, loss of property, habitat, like including loss of lives too.
Okay.
It was actually a devastating one.
So there was a lot of loss of life. According to you, was it preventable?
This thing, it happened sudden. So though I think if a better dam can be constructed, I think it can reduce some. It can help in the mitigation of the issue, but not totally. That would be the
you should have reduced. We could have reduced the impact.
Yes.
The casualties and the property loss would have been reduced had it been properly managed. Okay. So most welcome. So let us have the next next participant, please. Who else is to introduce?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
My name is Okasha Tahami Sarabi here in Nigeria, Katsina State.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Wonderful, sir.
Speak about your experience
Hello.
of managing disasters.
I
There, I think.
experienced a lot of disaster here in Katsina State, including my own town, GBA local government,
Okay.
which is a high level of
Okay.
flooding, which caused a lot of destruction of our housing, our cattle, and people, and deaths of people, casualties, and other things.
Okay.
After 2 to 3 days, we have received a lot of from the Ministry of Disaster Management here in Nigeria. We just show to see what are the problems here, what are the just in after 1 year, everything is clear now here in my own town, GB local governments. We built a lot of drainage and other things which are the cause of that flooding and other things.
Okay.
I also experienced another flooding in the state, which is Jigawa State here in Nigeria. It's also destruction of a lot of crops production, there are a lot of destruction of all the degradation of housing and amenities in Jigawa State.
Okay. So you
I
are
also
having
received
a
a
lot
lot
of
of
flooding.
Hello, sir.
Flooding. You are experiencing floods, no?
Yes, I experienced flooding and likely I just actually flooded.
Okay. So
After I
most
checked a
welcome
social
for
media
that.
and I was
Sir,
checked a social media in this way.
Yeah.
sir, there is an echo sound. I think you have opened two accounts.
I couldn't hear you, please.
I think you have opened two accounts of Google Meet. That because of that, echo sound is there.
Waiting, sir.
Okay.
Hello, ma.
Hello.
Hello, ma.
Yes. I think he'll re-enter.
Is it
Yes.
okay?
I think George. George might not.
It's okay?
It's working, but our presenter, Dr. Vijay George, he exit as I think he used two accounts. Right now, he'll enter again in a minute. Yes, sir. Now you can present again.
Hello, good morning, ma.
Good morning. Yes, you can give your introduction.
My name is Abubakar Sabiu from Nigeria.
Okay.
Yes,
And
ma.
have you experienced any disaster or managing any disaster in your country or in your community?
Yes, ma.
Okay. Would you like?
First of all, I would like to briefly explain, based on my own
Okay.
understanding, what disaster is. Disaster, these are factors which could be natural or artificial that affect the lives of humans and other living things. It
Yes.
could be due to human factor or natural.
Okay.
Examples are earthquake, flooding,
Yes.
and some other natural diseases that affected the community.
Okay.
Then I'm really experiencing some of these disasters here in my community or here in Nigeria in general,
Okay.
which include flooding, fire outbreak, and diseases outbreak within the community.
Okay.
So that's
So
what I understand by what disaster is.
okay. And what about disaster management? How do you
Okay,
manage disasters?
disaster management. These are techniques
Okay.
used to mitigate
Mm-hmm.
the factors affecting our environment, which could be natural or artificial.
Okay. So there are techniques which are used for managing disasters, like mitigation and maybe response, preparedness, and all
Yes,
that. Okay.
yes, and survey.
So if you effectively use those techniques, then we are able to reduce the impact of disasters, and in case something happens, we are able to save the lives. Okay, fine. So let us have the next introduction, please. Next person, please.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning and good afternoon, all. I'm Jabir Awad from Nigeria.
Good morning. Okay.
Yeah, my experience with disaster is just the recent flood in Nigeria, in both the northern and the southern part of Nigeria, in Jigawa State and Takot, that caused the death of many people and destruction of the property and the livelihood. So that is my recent experience with disaster. But in social media, I have some news on welfare in the Western countries. Yeah. So when disaster occur, especially many people are dying and people lost their livelihood, farming, agriculture, all their source of income was lost. The health structure will be destroyed, the hospital and everything. So many people suffer during the disaster.
Okay, so there are destruction of all these basic services. So because of that, it aggravates the suffering of the people.
Yes, sir.
So, okay, so most welcome. So let us have the next person, please. Anybody else to introduce?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well. This is Evaristo Skasunda from Zambia.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell me about, would you like to share your experience of managing disasters?
The experience of managing disasters comes when I worked in the Department of Disaster Management.
Oh.
Basically, we're looking at the whole paradigm of the disaster management cycle.
Okay.
Which began where we began from preparing, and then we would respond. We would do recovery and construction activities.
Okay.
And basically, when there are no disasters, we would look at mitigation, and we would look at prevention and mitigation planning.
Okay, very wonderful. So you have got a lot of exposure to disaster management. So glad to have you in this program. So let us let the other person introduce, please. Next person, please. Thank you so much. Anybody else to introduce? Otherwise, we will start off the presentation. Anybody else, please? Hello? Okay. So, shall we start the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, sir. We can start, sir.
Yes, sir, we can start.
Okay. So you can hear me, and my presentation is audio. I mean, you can see the slides.
Yes,
Can
we
see
can
the
hear you.
slide, but can you make it to full screen?
Okay. Now is it okay?
Yes, it is okay.
Okay.
We can't see the slide.
Very nice. So actually, I think these are all increasing the disaster risk. There are various factors which are increasing the disaster risk. Like, for example, the population growth. The population growth increases the vulnerability of the system. Large number of people are affected when any of these hazardous events occur. So that is a major issue. Another issue is of deforestation. So because of the deforestation, the floods have increased. Sometimes the sea erosion has increased. Various type of disasters have increased because of deforestation. And another major issue is that of climate change. See, due to the climate change, there is heavy rainfall within a short period of time. There are also cloudbursts and things like that, which are causing frequent disasters, and within a short span of time, there's large number of flooding. I mean, large amount of area is affected. So that is another reason. Then another important issue is that of no construction of vulnerable infrastructure. Weak infrastructures are created, whether it is roads or buildings. If they are not made disaster resistant, so if some small earthquake also will have large amount of impact, and large number of people and property may be affected. So that is another issue. Then another contributing factor is rapid urbanization and weak land use regulations. So even during the just close to the rivers, the buildings are constructed. So as a result of that, whenever there is a small flood also, people are affected. And another important component is that of poverty and inequality. See, recently we all have faced the COVID situation, and you see during the COVID, the inequality between the poor and the rich has grown tremendously. That has again resulted in the disaster getting affected large number of vulnerable population. So these are all increasing the risk, disaster risk of the people. So this we need to look at. And there are various type of disasters, whether it is forest fire or floods or tsunami or cyclones, as you have already explained, or even fire. There are various type of disasters. Some of these you have said could be natural, and others could be of man-made causes. So there are various type of disasters. The thing is, are we ready to face this type of disasters? Are our communities prepared to respond to this type of situations? So that is something we need to look at. So disasters normally They do destroy, they kill. They do not discriminate between people or men and nation. Everyone is affected because of disasters. And these disasters, they do not wait for us to be ready. So it is very, very important that we build our capacities of various stakeholders, whether it is of the government, the NGOs, or even the community people. We need to build their capacities. So that is very, very important to manage disasters. We had discussed about disasters. I asked a small question regarding disaster, whether if it is a small fire that is not bringing in any casualty, is it a disaster? So on further proving, you said that it is not a disaster. So there is a definition for disaster. The definition is normally it is an event. It can be natural or man-made, sudden or progressive, which strikes with such a severity that result in widespread devastation. So these events, they bring in widespread devastation, maybe loss of life and property, livelihood and human suffering. So these are all characteristics of disasters. And normally it goes beyond the coping capability of the community to manage. So as such, it disrupts the society, the functioning of the society. And management by local administration with routine procedures is not possible. They have to take exceptional measures to manage. And the affected community would require outside help to manage this. And disaster management per se is a multi-agency responsibility, and it is everyone's business, as you have already discussed. So the government, NGOs, community, and all the people, everyone needs to be involved in the management of disasters. So this is the official definition of disasters. So it can be natural, it can be man-made, it can be sudden or progressive, like it can have an earthquake, or it can be a drought also. So these are all categorized under disaster, provided the community, affected community, is not able to manage with its own resources, and it brings in a lot of loss, large scale devastation, livelihood loss, and all these things. So this is a thing. And when we speak about disasters, there is something known as the hazards. So hazards per se are not disasters. They pose threat to people and structure or economic assets which may cause a disaster. For example, I am from Bhopal. We had the Bhopal gas tragedy. It was the largest, the biggest industrial disaster so far. So there was the storage of MIC, methyl isocyanide, and when this leaked and people were affected, then it had become a disaster. But before, when it was stored there, it was only a hazard. So we need to understand, first of all, what are the hazards to which we are all prone to. So the local hazards needs to be identified. So first thing is to understand the hazards. What are the hazards which may cause a disaster in your locality, in your state, or in your province, or in your country? That needs to be assessed. So there are various techniques to assess this hazard. So one is called the seasonality diagram. Sometimes in different seasons, you have various type of hazardous events taking place. So there is a season for rain, there is a season for flood, there is a season for heat waves and cold waves. Some hazards, of course, they occur they occur all through the seasons. So we need to understand. So seasonality diagram needs to be identified. Another method is a timeline analysis. So maybe in the last 100 years, what type of hazardous events have occurred in your particular area? that can be historically analyzed, and the data can be collected, and you can have an assessment as to how many people have been affected, how much of area has been affected, what was the secondary disaster, and all these things. So I spoke about the seasonality diagram, and the second is the timeline analysis. And sometimes we can also do the hazard mapping. You take the entire map of your country or the province, and you can identify which are the places prone to the various type of hazardous events. So you can do the hazard mapping. So with these simple methods, one is able to identify the various type of hazards. And of course, there are also GIS based or computer based analysis and software based analysis are also there that can also be used for identifying the hazards and the impact, the secondary hazards and things like that. So first thing is to understand hazards. When we speak about disasters, the second important component is that of vulnerability. Everyone in the community is not equally affected by disasters. So if people who are vulnerable, for example, if people who are living near the flood prone areas or near the rivers, they may be first affected, they may be more vulnerable. And in the locality itself, if there are disabled people or old people or sick persons, they may be more affected by disasters. So there are different type of vulnerabilities that needs to be understood. The vulnerability is the extent which a community structure, service or geographical area is likely to be damaged or disrupted by the impact of particular hazard on account of its nature. For example, it's an old building, or it is proximity to the river, or the proximity to hazardous industries. Because of that, different people and areas may be differently affected. So that is the vulnerability issue. So again, in each of the community, we need to identify who are the people and property who are more vulnerable. So that needs to be surveyed. We need to conduct a proper survey and identify this. So that is a second issue. And this vulnerability can be physical vulnerability, maybe because of the location, or socio-economic vulnerability, maybe because of the lack of education, lack of knowledge or awareness, or lack of economic power, purchasing power. Because of that also, people may be differently affected. They may be more vulnerable. So that needs to be identified. So physical vulnerability depends on the physical location of the people. As I said, suppose your house is located in the landslide prone area, so you may be more vulnerable to that. Your building is very old, maybe 50 years old, and the structure is not properly constructed, so that may create a vulnerability. Again, it also depends on the construction techniques, material used, siting of the houses or the infrastructure, and the location. So all this, because of all this, the physical vulnerability varies. And secondly, there is also the socio-economic vulnerability. So disasters affect human activities, and different people are affected differently. As I said, the people who are aware of the do's and don'ts, they may be less affected. In the case of Bhopal, again, the people who are aware of what to do during the gas leak, they have closed all the doors and windows of the house, and they have not gone out of the house. So they were less affected rather than people who are run away from that. So the do's and the educational level, the awareness level, so all this also have an important indicator for vulnerability. So that needs to be recognized. Again, we need to do a survey on that and identify who are the people and property which are more affected by these conditions. When we speak about disasters, again, the third important component is that of the capacity. So in order to manage any type of disaster, we need to have resources. So what is the type of resources you are having? These are actually the trained manpower and material resources. Suppose you spoke about the fires which are taking place. If people are trained about fire management and if they have the basic equipments, so they may be able to put out the fire at the initial stage itself. But if they are not trained and they don't have the equipments, they may not be able to put out the fire, and it may create a larger fire, and it may become a disaster. So the capacities for managing disaster is another important component. So we need to again identify these capacities which are there, and this capacity analysis can be done through resource inventory. So you can identify what type of resources you are having. It can be the medical resources, it can be the firefighting equipments, or it can be the trained manpower, or you have maybe having some specialized equipments. So this needs to be identified according to the categories, like medical resources, search and rescue resources, communication resources, or transportation resources, temporary shelter resources, and all these things. So this can be identified, and you can categorize, and you can also identify who are the contact person, how much, what is their capacity, how much time these resources will take to reach to your places. So all this can be analyzed through resource inventory. And second method could be that of resource mapping. Just like we have mapped the hazards, you can also map the resources in your locality, or in your state, or in your country, and you can mark them and identify those. So that is another important method. And if we find that there are certain gaps in the resources which are required to manage the disasters, then you have to augment those resources. You have to increase those resources. That is also important. So far we spoke about disasters and the basic components like the hazards, the vulnerability, and the capacity. So these three components are very, very important for disasters and to analyze those. When we speak about disaster risk, there are risk is the sum total of hazard, vulnerability, and exposure. So there is something known as the risk triangle, which speaks about three components. One is the hazard. What is the hazard? What are the hazards which are existing there? And what is the status of the vulnerability? How vulnerable are the different categories of people? And how many people and how much of property is likely to be exposed? For example, if you have a metro city and if you have a small town, in both the places there may be earthquake, but the metro city may be more affected because of the larger number of people and property are going to be exposed to that. So these parameters, all these three parameters will give an indication as to what would be the risk of that particular hazard or that particular vulnerability that is existing in your place. So this is called the risk triangle. And when we speak about disaster impact, you spoke about various type of impact. You said so many people have died, properties have been lost. So there are various type of impacts which are there, like the physical impact. People are physically affected, the property is physically affected. So injury may be there, death may be there, physical vulnerability may be there. There are so many type of physical impact. So that is one category of impact because of disasters. And secondly, we are also affected socially. There is a change in role of person. Suppose somebody dies in a family, the father of the family died, so the mother may have to become the breadwinner of that family. So sometimes there is isolation, change in marital status. So there may be widower, abuse, orphans. In the case of COVID, you must have seen so many people, so many children have lost their parents. They have become orphans and single parents. So migration also takes place during a disaster. So also there are social breakdown of the systems because of disasters. So socially also we are affected, and then we are also economically affected. Apart from social impact, large number of areas affected, houses collapse, we no industries are affected. So because of that, employment is affected. So as the infrastructure is affected, so economic loss is, the crop is affected, so economic loss is also there. And apart from that, there is also the psychological impact. People are affected psychologically. Socio-psycho impacts are there. People go into distress, they are not able to sleep, they get into flashback every time when they try to sleep. The disaster which has occurred, which they have seen, they have experienced, they all this come to their mind, and there are flashbacks and intrusion. Sometimes people are not able to go to the places. Suppose there was a bus accident, they are not able to travel by bus because they want to avoid. They feel that if I travel by bus, there could be another disaster. Sometimes there are also psychological impact like hatred and revenge. So this happens normally, mostly in communal rights. So one community has attacked and one community has suffered, they want to take revenge. So there is a hatred feeling and denial. Sometimes people are not able to accept the loss, especially if their dear ones have died. They feel that they have not died, they are still alive, they are not able to accept that loss. Then sometimes again people are having dependency and insecurity. So whatever they have gained, whatever they have built up within so many years, all these things have lost, so there is no future. So this type of feelings also they have. And sometimes the people who are affected, they are withdrawn and they don't interact with people, they don't intermingle, and they feel the grief. And grieving is normal, but if it is beyond uh, no if they are grieving for a large number of days, then again it is a psychological problem. And sometimes people feel guilt. Suppose in a family everyone has been affected, only one person is alive, so he or she feels it is because of her sins or something of this sort. So that guilt feeling is there. So hypervigilance, lack of trust, hopelessness, this type of situation also people experience.
Sir,
So yeah.
sir, are you, I mean, your slides are not moving.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Okay.
now it's moving.
Okay. Is it moving now?
Yes.
Okay. So we were speaking about various type of impact of disasters, um, and I think I also spoke about the various type of hazards, vulnerabilities. Then I spoke about various type of vulnerabilities. Then again I have spoken about the resources, the capacities.
You're welcome.
Then
Thank you.
I also spoke about the various type of the factors which are having an impact on the risk. So what are the factors? One is the hazard, vulnerability, and exposure. I spoke about that. Then I spoke about the various type of impact. That is the physical impact, the social impact, the economic impact, and also psychological impact. And I was discussing about the psychological impact, wherein no people are affected psychologically, and no they need to be treated just like the physical injury needs to be treated. Psychological impact also need to be treated psychologically. So that is also important. So is there any question you want to ask? As of now, we spoke about the disaster definition, the basic issues like hazard, vulnerability, capacity, and the impact of disasters. Any of you participant, any of you would like to raise any question, or are you clear about this so far?
We are clear about it.
Okay. So if you are clear, then we'll proceed. So a
I have a
disaster.
question.
You have a question?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Come on.
Can you please shed more light on difference between hazard and disaster?
See, hazards are potential disasters. See, for example, in your surrounding, there may be a industry which is having hazardous chemicals. They may be storing these hazardous chemicals. So that is a hazard. But if there is a leak in that hazardous chemical and people are going to be affected, and it goes beyond the capability of the community to manage, then it becomes a disaster for that community. But before the gas leak, the storage itself was a hazard. You understand? Suppose there is a dam, there is a lot of storage of water in that, and that is a hazard for people who are living in the downstream. Suppose there is a breakage of that dam. As a result of that, lot of people are affected and they are not able to manage with their resources. It becomes a disaster for them. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Have you understood? I have given you two examples of a chemical factory and also a storage of, water.
Yes, sir.
So those are. Hello.
Yes, sir, I understand.
You understood, no? So we'll proceed. Okay. Now, having understood these issues, now we are coming to another important issue. There is an interaction between hazards and vulnerable people. If there is only hazards, for example, if there is an earthquake and this earthquake has taken place in a desert and there are no property, no houses, no people, then it may not become a disaster. But if the earthquake takes place in an area which is habitated by people and buildings are there, and this earthquake creates havoc in to control the hazard, reduce the hazards. If that is not possible, if we are not eliminate the hazards, the next best option is to reduce the vulnerabilities of the people. How do you reduce the vulnerabilities of the people? There are various factors like underlying causes for vulnerabilities. Why are people living in risk-prone areas? Because
Sir, are you speaking?
I think he stopped. He's off now.
Okay, let me check. I think some issue is there. I need to check. Please wait. Yes, he's coming back.
Okay. Sorry, actually there was some disruption. Is my slide seen? Is it clear?
No, sir. You need to share it again.
Okay, okay.
You can share the screen also. That is also an option. In that way, if you share the screen, you can operate your computer in a normal way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So entire screen needs to be shared.
Yeah, you can use that also, but
Okay.
you do it as per your comfort, sir.
Okay, okay. Let me do that. Okay. Am I visible, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we were speaking about the interaction between hazardous events and the vulnerability issues. So disasters take place only if there is an interaction between the vulnerable people and property and the hazardous events. So as I said, we have to try to reduce the hazards, and if that is not possible, we should try to reduce the vulnerabilities of the people. Why people are vulnerable? What are the issues? There are certain issues, like there are certain underlying causes. People are living in vulnerable areas because they don't have resources, they are poor, or economic systems are not proper, or there could be dynamic pressures like lack of institutions, lack of education training, lack of skills, or lack of investments, or population expansion, or urbanization, environmental degradation. So all these are also contributing factors for increasing the vulnerabilities, or even there are unsafe conditions. So the best way to reduce disaster is also to work on the vulnerability issues. So work on poverty reduction, work on developing systems, work on education, awareness, skilling the people, all these things. So these are also equally important for disaster reduction. Now, we have actually this we spoke about these issues, and now we have this unit speaks about natural disasters. So natural disasters, sometimes they are very intense, and without much warning they come in, and because of the socio-economic and increasing population, they are affecting large number of people, and there are also recurrence and frequency and the magnitude of disasters have increased, and as a result of that there are huge economic losses. So when we speak about various type of natural disasters, there are also like some in your study material this is given, like wind and water related natural disasters. We have the floods, the droughts, and the cyclone, tsunami, and all that. And then there are also climate related disasters like heat wave, cold wave, even global warming, sea level rise, and ozone depletion. All these are also natural disasters. Now in India, we have actually also there are others like mountain related disasters like landslides and snow avalanches, and the geological related disasters like earthquakes or volcanoes. So these are also there. And in India, we have in our country we have defined, or we have categorized disasters into like 5 categories, like water and climate related, geological related, chemical disasters, accident and biological related disasters. So these are also ways of looking at the categorization of disasters. And when we speak about water and climate related, we have a whole lot of like flood, drainage management, cyclone, tornado, hailstorm, cloudburst, again thunder and lightning. So all this, including drought, all these are coming under this category. Then when we speak about the geological related disasters, we have like earthquake or tsunami, landslide, dam burst, for example, or mine fires. So these are all coming under geological related disasters in our country. And then, of course, we have the industrial and chemical disasters, which again are man-made disasters. But these are coming under this categorization. And we have again accident-related disasters. Most of these accident-related disasters are also, if we look at, in a way, man-made disasters. So like the urban fires or village fire, forest fire, or even serial bomb blast. So all these were festival related disasters like stampede or boat capsizing, which are all coming under like accidents. So all these are coming under this category. So in India we have defined or categorized disasters into 5 categories, and different countries must have categorized disasters into various groups. And overall, internationally, there is a natural and industrial, I mean, natural and man-made disasters, and also sudden and progressive type of disasters. So this is all what I want to speak about the disaster issues, disasters. Now, I also would like to stop at this moment for a few minutes just to get your feedback. So we, in this session for the last 1 hour, we spoke about the disasters. What is disaster? What are the basic components like the hazard, the vulnerabilities, the capacities, the various categories of disasters, and the impact of disasters. So all these things we have spoken about, and you also have shared your experiences. So if you have any doubts on this, then we will clarify. Otherwise, we will go to the next component, that is of disaster management. We spoke about disasters. Now we would like to go on for speaking about disaster management. So let me hear from you. Any issues you want to clarify? Okay, I think you do not have much issues. So anything you want to ask or any
Yes.
issue?
Muhammad Yusuf raised hand, sir.
Yeah, please tell me what exactly you would like to. Yeah.
How can education level of community affect of disasters?
How can
education level of community?
Yeah, see, if
how can educational level of community affect on disasters?
See, if the community is not educated and aware, then the vulnerability of that community increases. For example, if one community is educated, they are knowledgeable, they know what to do and what not to do during a disaster, they know which are the agencies which are working, the response agencies, their numbers, so they will be able to mobilize those resources fast. If they know what to do and what not to do, then they will be able to follow that procedure. But the community which is not educated, as per the research, they are more likely to be affected or they are more likely to be impacted by the disasters. Am I clear? Hello?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, clear.
Yeah, anybody else? Go ahead. Salim, you want to ask something?
Yes, sir, I do have a certain question from this.
Yeah, please.
So, despite the number of vulnerable areas and vulnerable people, at times you will see that most of the vulnerable peoples, they lack sociological awareness, or I could even stated it as a lack of mobilization, as one of my colleagues just asked.
Yeah.
At times, lack of mobilization has a significant role in in affected areas. It used to contribute a lot. So, by which measures are those measures are they going to be tackled in an easiest way?
Yeah. So I think, Mr. Salim, it is a very, very pertinent question you have asked. So one of the interventions we normally do is that of community-based disaster preparedness. So working with communities, preparing those communities, and developing leadership among the community, and educating and preparing the community through a community-based process. So that is one of the ways of doing it. There could be other ways, like you may have the local self-government, you may have the local government, the NGOs, or faith-based organizations. So all this also play a role in mobilizing the community for disaster risk reduction. You want to add something more?
No, sir. I'm okay. It's okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So shall we move on to the next component of disaster management?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you see my slide, please? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay. So so far we spoke about disasters and the impact. Now we are going to speak about the disaster management issue. So what is disaster management? Disaster management is a continuous and integrated process of planning, organizing, coordinating, and implementing measures which are necessary for what? For prevention of disasters. As far as possible, we should take up measures to prevent disasters. So how do you prevent disasters? Like, for example, certain sicknesses can be prevented by way of vaccination, or communal rights can be prevented through developing proper community interactions and peace committees and proper collaborative system in the community. So industrial disaster can be prevented through taking up risk reduction measures. So that is one issue. So it is a continuous process. It is not a one-time process. So it is like a cycle. It goes on. And so the one is the prevention. And if we are not able to prevent disasters, the next best option is to mitigate disasters. So what is the meaning of mitigation of disasters? We take up activities before a disaster so that the impact of disasters can be minimized. For example, we can take up structural mitigation measures. Suppose you are living in an area which is prone to earthquake. So what we can do, we can maybe build earthquake resistant structures there. So because of that, even if the earthquake happens, the building may not collapse. As a result of that, the impact will be minimized. So that is the second issue. And third important issue is that of preparedness. So preparing the communities. One is a community-based preparedness, preparing disaster management plans. So all these things, and also prompt response. The quick response should be there. So for that, your system should be in readiness, and the system should be in readiness 365 days by 24 hours. So that type of readiness, your firefighting equipment should be ready at all time. Your ambulance system should be ready at all time. Your early warning system, communication system, all this needs to be in readiness. so that the response agencies are able to provide response in a timely manner, and as a result of that, the casualties can be reduced. And also it speaks about rehabilitation and reconstruction and total recovery. So disaster management means all this. It is not just response or rehabilitation. Before 1990, the understanding of the world community was disaster management means response and rehabilitation. But after this 1990, the UN had declared International Decade for Natural Disaster Reduction, and every government have understood the importance of taking up pre-disaster management activities. So globally, people have started approaching disaster management from a holistic perspective, wherein pre-disaster and post-disaster management activities were synergized. So disaster management includes all these things, and there is a disaster management cycle. Can you see my slide? The disaster management cycle. It is visible, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you
Yes,
look
it
at
is
this
visible.
disaster management cycle, the red area you see, the disaster takes place, and immediately after the disaster, what do? We do disaster response. And in disaster response, there are multiple functions. One is the early warning. Suppose there is a disaster, we give the warning to the people, and the warning should be given to people who are going to be affected as well as to the respond agencies. So both the levels we have to give the early warning. Then there is evacuation of the people. People who are going to be affected by disasters, they need to be evacuated. So evacuation, for this evacuation, you need to have teams in place, systems in place. You need to do the search and rescue in case of flood or fire or earthquake or any of these industrial disasters. You have to rescue people. You have to search. You have to search and rescue people. For that, you need to have teams and equipments in place. So that is the third component. And you may have to provide first aid to the people. So for that, you need to have medical teams or first aid trained people and with equipments. So that is the first aid. And then you may have to provide medical aid to the people, definitive treatment to the people who are going to be affected. So for that, you need to have systems in place. You may have to transport people who are affected. So they need to be transported, and you should have vehicles in place and know how to move the people in different situations. So how you are going to arrange this transport system. Then once you move the people, they need to be moved to temporary shelters. So people will have to be moved to temporary shelters, and in this shelter, we need to arrange food, water, sanitation, safety, security, counseling, and all these things. And you may have different types of people there. You may have old people, young people, or pregnant ladies. You may have disabled people. You may have various categories of people. Various communities may be represented in that camp. So you need to take care of all their needs. Their needs may not be same, or there may be different type of needs that needs to be catered to. So for that, what is the type of arrangement you need to do? So those are important. You have to provide sanitation facilities in camps for women, children, and men. They may sometimes they have to be provided separate places for this, and they need to be secured. And differential needs of women and men, they need to be provided. So, and again, they need to be provided psychological support, counseling. They may be under trauma and shock, so they need to be provided all this. So there are around 14 functions across the board, whether it is natural disaster or industrial disaster. One needs to provide disaster response services. So these are immediately done after the disaster, so that the people can be rescued and no, they can be provided all this type of support. So these are called disaster response activities. The main thing is our response system should be in readiness all time, so that we are able to provide this. And that this is one of the components of disaster management. And the second component again is rehabilitation. Basically, after the response, we need to provide rehabilitation services to the people. So there may be reconstruction, resettlement, rehabilitation. So there are two types of rehabilitation. One is the short-term rehabilitation. People who are affected, they need to be provided immediate rehabilitation in terms of maybe restoration of the electricity, repair of roads, the social infrastructure like the medical services, the education systems. All this needs to be repaired and restored on a war footing basis. They are critical infrastructure restoration, and they are required for life to move on. So those needs to be done, and this is called the short-term recovery aspect. And then there is also a long-term recovery aspect, which consists of the reconstruction, resettlement, and rehabilitation. The housing, the infrastructure, the agriculture, the livelihood activities, the industries, all these things needs to be restored better than the previous situation or before the disaster. What was the situation? These things needs to be restored and reconstructed better than the previous condition, using the disaster resistant construction techniques and all that. So these are all post disaster management activities. So here the disaster response, there are 14 functions, then short term recovery and long term recovery. So these are all post disaster management activities. But there are also pre-disaster management activities. Just like I said, we need to prevent disasters as far as possible. All the man-made disasters can be prevented. So we need to take up timely and structured interventions for those. And if we are not able to prevent, we need to go for mitigation measures. And these mitigation measures are consisting of structural mitigation measures and non-structural mitigation measures. In structural, we build disaster resistant structures so that the impact would be minimized, just like the example which I have cited for earthquake. Or even for a drought, you can have water recharging, harvesting, or check dams, leveling, and all that. So this will reduce the impact of drought. Drought may happen, the impact can be reduced. So those are all structural mitigation measures. You must have heard about levees. Sometimes we make flood walls. So these flood walls are made so that the water doesn't reach the habitation. So as a result of that, the people are not affected by this flood situation. So we need to look at various structural mitigation measures to reduce or minimize the impact of disasters. These are called structural mitigation measures. And there are also non-structural mitigation measures, wherein we need to work on education, awareness, creating the right safety culture among the people and society at various levels, whether it is at the school level, college level, or at the hospital level or industry level. So we need to create right habits and right safety culture, promote that, and that will reduce the impact of disasters. So these are structural mitigation and non-structural mitigation measures. And the third component is basically it speaks about preparedness. So what type of preparedness we need to do? So we will have a look at those. Prevention we already discussed. Then structural and non-structural mitigation measures we have just had a discussion. And then preparedness measures. Preparedness measures which enable governments, organizations, and community and individuals to respond rapidly and effectively to disaster situations. So this may include formulation of viable disaster management plans. So one of the issues is to prepare disaster management plans at various levels. So there could be a national disaster management plan. There could be a provisional, state level or province level disaster management plan. There could be under the state, there may be districts or some area councils. So you may have a disaster management plan at that level. And again, coming to the community level, we need to have disaster management plans in place. So that is very, very important. And maintenance of resource inventory and training of personnel. So this again are important component of disaster preparedness. So preparedness measures which will include preparing teams for search and rescue, for administrative management, for communication, early warning. So teams needs to be prepared for damage and need assessment, so that the teams will be aware of what is to be done, what are the procedures, and they will be in a position to do the damage and need assessment immediately. Similarly, resource management. Suppose in case of a disaster, how to deploy resources, where these resources will come, how these resources needs to be mobilized. So all this needs to be worked out before a disaster. Then practical rehearsals of plans. So they are called mock drills. Sometimes they are called, you can do it through tabletop exercises or even through real exercises, mobilization of all the resources and conducting real exercises. So again, people needs to be trained on effective use of media. So there should be a proper spokesperson and how to use the media for generating awareness, and also to tell the people about the arrangements which are made by the government and other agencies for disaster response, and even for transport management training, public awareness. So all this needs to be done during the preparedness time, so that this can be activated in a very without much effort. And identification of NGOs. Many of you have spoken about NGOs. So which are those NGOs? What are their capabilities? What resources they have? What type of manpower they have? What are their areas of work? So all this needs to be identified. Shelter and relief camps, where you are going to arrange in case of flood. Where would be your relief camps? So you need to, many of these relief camps during flood can be you can select those places much before the flood, depending on the geographical condition. And deployment of rapid action force and other local forces, and preparation of disaster management plans, planning maps. There should be maps for the locality, and enforcement of land use planning, safety, structural construction measures and codes, latest state-of-the-art equipments. All this needs to be in place. So these all things are coming under the preparedness, so that there will be a proper seamless response system in place. So those are important. Then like for example, search and rescue. So you need to have teams in place. Those teams needs to be trained. Administrative arrangements, how you are going to compile the information, how the information documentation will take place, how the information flow will take place. All this needs to be practiced before this disaster. And then what type of communication system you may have during a disaster. So sometimes our normal communication systems like the mobiles or the other systems may not work. So you may have to have systems. Yes. Hello. Have any question?
Sir, one of the learner is writing in the chat box. I can read it for you, because there must be some internet issue. So he wrote on the chat box, why is it important for the public to participate in the creation of mitigation plan? And second is, most mitigation literature recommends that the mitigation plan be reviewed every 5 years. Why? First is why it is important for the public to participate.
So, okay, should I answer this one at the end of the presentation, or?
Yes, you can, sir. Yes, you can, sir.
I will answer all this at the end of it.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
If that is okay with you. Okay. So let us continue, and then we will come back to all your questions. We will try to answer those. Okay. So like early warning systems, so this needs to be prepared. Sometimes the early warning systems, we need to check whether all the people who are going to be affected will be, I mean, are they in a position to understand this? So many times the language issues, the cultural issues, so those things needs to be checked before a disaster, not during a disaster, so that the communication reaches everyone, the last man or who is going to be affected. So that is very, very critical. So thus that needs to be checked. Then damage and need assessment. See, the response depends on the type of damage and need assessment report. So your or any locality, the people needs to be trained for that, so that the local government is able to deploy the right type of personnel for damage and need assessment, and as such the right reports goes to the central government or state government or provincial government, and accordingly they will be able to provide the right resources and personnel. So that is very, very important. And again, resource management, how see what type of resources are available, maybe from the nearby district or nearby centers. So those needs to be identified beforehand, and proper resource inventory needs to be put in place. So again, that is important. Then practical rehearsals. So as I said, the scenarios before a flood, the flood scenario needs to be created, and you need to check how the response agencies will respond to, and what are the problems they will face, and those needs to be rectified during this rehearsal, so that in case of a disaster these problems will not be there. So that is again very, very important, and this has to be done on a regular basis, maybe every 6 months or every 1 year. This needs to be done for various hazardous events depending on the scenario. Suppose your area is prone to flood or fire or even earthquake, then you need to have these rehearsals done for various type of scenarios. So again, that is important. And then effective use of media, how we are going to use the media for preparing the communities, maybe for awareness generation, relief measures done by the local authorities, so that needs to be communicated to the people, do's and don'ts, and various facilities which you have established, so those also needs to be communicated to the people. That is also equally important. And transport management, again this needs to be looked into, and training of personnel. So how we are going to train the personnel for training for crisis management, or training for response, trainings for various skills like search and rescue or distribution, early warning, first aid, damage assessment, mitigation aspects. All this needs to be done on a regular basis. Again, another important issue is that of public awareness. So it is critical that the community and the public at large is aware of the various type of hazards, the vulnerable people, the do's and don'ts, mitigation measures, and all these things. So this needs to be again done maybe through public means media, or even through various local, like maybe street plays or songs, or through education institutions. So this needs to be, or maybe through rallies and things like that. So that is also equally important. Then identification of NGOs. So you need to identify the NGOs, their capacities, their resources, the contact persons well in time. Shelter and relief camp, where you're going to establish, what would be their capacity, what will be the resources available. So this needs to be done. Preparing the plans, I said. So this can be national level, state level, and various level. And this plan should have the various hazards, the vulnerable people, the resources, the mitigation measures, the preventive measures, the preparedness measures, and response systems, SOPs for various teams, maybe for the search and rescue team and first aid teams and different teams. The standard operating procedures should be written down. So all this will be there in the plan at various levels, and this needs to be reversed, as I said. And again, purchasing of the latest equipments for search and rescue, evacuation, transportation, and things like that. So these are all part of disaster response. And coming to, as I said, when we discussed about disaster management and development, they are not different things. They need to be integrated. So there is a need for integration between the development and disaster management. Like for example, there is a relation between development and disasters. Sometimes development can increase vulnerabilities. Disasters can reduce the developmental progress. Development can reduce vulnerability. Suppose you have created a very good hospital in your locality, that can reduce the vulnerabilities of the people. Or disaster can provide developmental opportunities. As I said, when a disaster takes place, when we rebuild, we use disaster resistant technologies. So as such, it provides an opportunity to rebuild with the disaster resistant technologies and techniques. So that is also equally important. And coming to say, this should go in the same line, disaster management and development, and there should be proper coordination, community participation, involving the community, and providing multiple livelihood options. All these are important for integrating development and disaster management. So ultimately, disaster management is not a different subject. It is part of our development process. So we need to integrate disaster management component into our developmental process. Suppose you are building a house, it should be made for safety. If you are building a hospital, or if you are building a road or dam or industry, these should be created disaster resistant. If you are producing, or if you are educating people for medicine, your medical people should be able to provide disaster response services. They should be able to provide disaster medicine facilities. Or if you are building, if you are creating or educating engineers, they should know the disaster resistant technologies. So this type of integration need to take place in all walks of our life. That is, in short, we have to integrate development with disaster management. So again, these are important. And I think I already spoke about disaster response functions. No, there are many functions which already we have discussed. Okay. So far, any doubt? Is there anything you want to discuss? I think you have talked about one or two issues. Shall I take up those? Hello?
Yes, sir, you can go ahead.
I think the question was about mitigation. No, you need to revive mitigation every time, every 5 years. I think the mitigation.
Should I read a question from the chat text box, sir? Again, should I read it?
If you could, please.
Yes. Harasaleto.
Yeah.
He is asking that why it is important for public to participate in the creation of mitigation plan. First is this.
Yeah. So I think the person who asked, you have any, what is your view on this? According to you, why the community should participate?
Sir, I think actually there are in some of our participants, in their countries or on their location, the internet connection is not that good. So if they are not able to speak, they just write in the.
Okay. So the main thing is, the community needs to participate in the mitigation, because community involved. See, the mitigation plan needs to be made as per the requirement of the people. See, it is not only one way about when people who face the disasters, who experience disasters, they are in a better position to suggest measures, so that these can be addressed through mitigation. So if community is not involved, suppose I sit in the capital of the the country, and without understanding the local conditions, if I make a disaster mitigation plan, that may not address the real issue. So as such, this is a critical issue. And if people are involved, they take the ownership, and they will be more involved in they will have the ownership, they have the pride to implement this, they will be your partners. So these are critical issues for involvement, especially in democratic countries, and otherwise also it needs to be done through people's participation. I hope I am clear about this, or you
Yes, sir.
have
And
understood
the
some of
next
this
question
issue.
is.
Yeah.
Next question from that same learner is, most mitigation literature recommends that the mitigation plan be reviewed every 5 years. Why?
See, the mitigation, sometimes the vulnerabilities, the hazards, scenario change, and the capacity scenario change. Maybe no, it is not only 5 years, but sometimes it change frequently. So it is important when the hazard scenario, vulnerability scenario changes, this the mitigation measures also will change. So it is very dynamic.
And
See,
sir, maybe more fewer than 5 years nowadays, because
yeah.
the
So
technology changes very fast now.
yeah, so as such, it should be reviewed maybe every 2-3 years, not wait for 5 years. But it's all right. It should be a dynamic type of
Okay.
this thing. So every year should be reviewed, but at least every 5 years, because of see, you can't change every time the plans, no. So in order to bring in sustainability, it is kept that way.
I hope it is clear, sir.
Yeah, I hope so.
So, sir, is it on for question answer session?
No, I have a few more things to share, but I am open for question answer section also. Being the first, because we have to build build up the thing in a gradual manner.
Yeah.
So we can open the floor for discussion and questions, if that is okay.
Yes, we generally go in that manner only, sir.
Yeah.
And our learners are also very interactive.
Yeah.
So,
So let's
yeah,
do that.
if you want to share something or discuss something, we can, or ask something, you can.
Okay. So, see, I try to give you certain important issues like disasters to start with. So it is applicable for both natural and man-made disasters. And after that, I thought of discussing the disaster management issues. Again, it is applicable across the board, whether it is natural or industrial or any type of disasters. You have to do pre and post disaster management activities. So if you have any question or any concerns, you can raise. Otherwise, I have a few more slides regarding framework for disaster management. especially the international framework for disaster management. So depends on your need. You have any question, or you are tired of listening to one person?
No, sir. Actually, your presentation is so good. I'm not bound to sit here, but I'm sitting here for the whole 2 hours.
Oh, that's so nice of you.
So you can continue, sir, in between.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, doctor. We really appreciate the
Yes,
presentation. My question is that for this mitigation to be done, is there a need for a committee necessarily for that, or it will be like an open public hearing? Thank you.
So I think first of all, it needs to be technically sound. So once you assess the risk and type of hazards, and then it has to be assessed by the technical people. Suppose if it is an earthquake prone area, what type of structural mitigation you can take up, what are the viabilities, what are the costs involved, what are the alternatives. So those needs to be studied by the technical people, and then only it can be, or in the once you do the technical study, you can involve the people, get their suggestions for implementation, because technical issues are also equally important, just like public participation. If technically the projects are not sound, then there is no point in getting only views from the people. So I think especially for structural mitigation issues, you need to have a technical committee also to assess and propose various technical measures. Am I clear?
Yes, doctor. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So is there any other submission, or we can go for the next slides?
There is a question in chat.
Yes, please. Okay, there is a question in chat. Okay.
Yeah, please. Can you read that, please?
Yes, sir. Tombe Silver is asking, how can disaster measure be put in place to respond any emergency disaster?
So see, when you make the disaster management plans, see, the approach to disaster management is multi-hazard. Okay. So whether it is earthquake or flood or industrial disasters, the response mechanisms are quite similar. So you need to have systems in place, and this, for example, early warning. So early warning, if it is for flood or drought, or you have to provide, so there should be a system for that, for damage assessment, for example, or evacuation, for example, or transportation. So all these are quite similar. So you need to make a plan and put a system in place, a management structure in place, like control rooms and incident command days and various teams, communication systems. All this needs to be put in place at various levels, maybe at the local level, maybe at the provincial level, or national level. This needs to be put in place. So in India, we have something known as disaster management authorities. For example, we have prepared, our parliament has passed the Disaster Management Act of 2005. Under this act, we have authorities at various levels. At the national level, we have the National Disaster Management Authority, headed by the Prime Minister of the country. At the state level, we have State Disaster Management Authority, headed by the Chief Ministers of the state. Then again, coming down the district level, we have the District Disaster Management Authority, headed by the district collectors. Then coming to the community level, we have the local self-governments, like we have the urban local bodies, or this rural local bodies, Gram Panchayat. So all this level we have various authorities for managing disasters, which means for preparedness and also post-disaster management activity. So I think as per the legislation, you can also bring in this type of authorities and legal systems in place. No, some of these countries are already having. You may, if they are, if you are not having, you may think, or similar systems may be brought in. So this is my suggestion. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's go to the next few slides. Now coming to international framework for disaster management. At the international level, there are various frameworks. At the moment,
Telling me slide.
Can you see the slide?
No.
Again, we have to share or what?
Yes, sir. You need to share it again.
Okay. Can you see the slide, please?
Yes.
Okay. So we have at the international level, there are various frameworks. At the moment, there is a framework known as Sendai framework, which was actually signed in Sendai, which is in Japan, in 2015. And this framework is for 15 years. And before that, there was Yoga framework of action. And before that, there was the International Strategy for Disaster Risk Reduction. And also before that, there was the International Decade for Disaster Risk Reduction. So like that, there are this international system has progressed from various frameworks, and the present framework is the Sendai framework. So what is Sendai framework? The Sendai framework adopted on 18th March 2015 by representatives from 187 countries, and this is built on the experience of the earlier framework, Yoga framework of action. So it has got various targets and goals and priorities of actions, which we will have a look. So the first thing is, what is the expected outcome? The expected outcome is sustainable reduction of disaster risk and losses in lives, livelihood, health, and in economic and physical aspects. And it has got a goal also to prevent new and reduce existing disaster risk. So prevent the new disaster risk and also the existing disaster risk. That is the goal. And there are certain priorities of action. The first thing is understanding disaster risk. So in every country should understand what are the disaster risk, and that needs to be studied. That is the first priority. The second priority is strengthening disaster risk reduction for resilience. So whatever systems which are existing in each of these signatory countries, they need to strengthen the systems, whether at the central level or at the local level. This system needs to be strengthened, more budget needs to be allocated, more resources needs to be provided. So those needs to be done. And the third priority is investing in disaster risk reduction for resilience. So building the capacities of the community so that they would be resilient in case of shocks and disasters, they are able to recover fast. So the community resilience should be developed, further strengthened. For that, various programs and activities needs to be conducted. So that is the third priority. And the fourth priority is disaster preparedness for effective response. So the disaster preparedness system needs to be again strengthened. So that is also an important issue. And again, focus on building back better. So as I mentioned, the disasters provide an opportunity for better development. So whenever we do the recovery process, reconstruction process, those need to take care of the disaster risk. So disaster resistant technologies needs to be used for building back better. So those are also important priorities. There are four priorities of action under the Sendai framework, and there are various stakeholders. The stakeholders include the local to international level. So the civil society, volunteers, NGOs, education system, starting from the local government to international level, including the media, scientific community, professional associations. So all these agencies, as I already mentioned, disaster management is everyone's business. So every stakeholder possible should be involved in this process. And there should be international collaboration and partnership for this type of activities. So the Sendai framework speaks about all these things. It also speaks about reducing mortality. The number of people who have died should be reduced from 2020 to 2030 in comparison of earlier times. So the number of mortality should be reduced, number of affected people globally should be reduced, and the loss in critical infrastructure, economic loss needs to be reduced. So all this needs to be reduced, and then what needs to be increased? The countries with national and local strategies for disaster risk reduction. So as far as possible, every country should have this strategy and international cooperation. And the third and one of the most important issues is that of availability and accessibility of multi-hazard early warning. In fact, last year's International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, the theme was access and availability of multi-hazard early warning system, and disaster information, risk information should be shared with everyone. So that was the theme. So these things should be increased, and mortality, affected people, loss, critical infrastructure loss needs to be reduced. So these are the targets in this, and these are actually reviewed every 2 years by UNDRR, United Nations, strategy for United Nations, international risk reduction. So the agency which works, UNDRR, monitors this one, and every country is expected to give a report on this, the progress of the work done under this Sendai framework. Just like Sustainable Development Goal or Paris Agreement, which are being monitored. Similarly, for disasters reduction, Sendai framework is there, which is being monitored internationally by the UN agency. So I think this is all what I want to share. If you have maybe any last 1 or 2 questions, I can take, and then we'll stop this. Got some idea? Got some idea about these issues?
Damba Sam want to ask something.
Okay, yeah. Why don't you ask?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it has been so elaborate lectures. I really appreciate the way you conducted your lectures. But mine is just not a question, but a request. If you can be able to share with us these slides to really be able to put the knowledge at the back of our mind when we are reading through the material. Over.
Okay. Sir, he's asking if you can share the slides with the learners. Sir, it's muted. Your mic is muted. Yes.
Yeah. I can share the slides. There is no problem. It is made for you. So there is no issue. I will share it with Dr. Smriti. She can
Yes,
further.
I'll send you through emails. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And one more raised hand is from Admu Usman. Yes, Admu
Yes.
Usman.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, Doctor. We really appreciate these lectures. I will also should suggest that if the material can also be shared on our WhatsApp platforms, it will be good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Your study material, are you able to download from the LMS platform?
Hello, ma.
Are you able to download the study material from LMS?
Yes, the material that Doctor promised to share with us, I suggest that if it can also be shared in our WhatsApp platforms, it will also be good. Sometimes it's easy to access
Yeah,
them
the
via
file
WhatsApp.
is so big. So big, the study material files are very big. They are shared through generally drives. So I think it's not possible to share on WhatsApp. But even though I'll try to share the link through which you can directly go to the study material and read it on your phone. Okay.
It's okay, ma. Thank you.
Okay. And is there anyone else you want to? Someone is writing. Yes. What year will the Sendai framework end, and how far it is? How far is it implementation? I
Yeah.
think it may be a homework for you also, no? You.
Yeah. But yes, you can. There is a Sendai framework document is there available in UNDRR. You can check, but at the same time, it is going to end by 2030. 30.
Okay.
And it is being monitored every 2 years. There is a report which is coming, and you can also you can access that through UNDRR site.
Okay. And okay, the slides on record that he was asking already. He asked, and is there any other question or submission? I think, sir.
Okay.
I think I would like to ask,
Yeah.
tomorrow are we going to have the same course or is a different course? Because I received many schedules there which are always changed. It seems that we received which is somehow updated, another one is not well updated. Which one are we just going to follow?
The schedule we are following, which is latest one, and I don't think it is changed yet. Are you talking about the time or what?
No, not about the time, because I have received many notes inform me about the change of it. Maybe I will check maybe through the email because I received the all emails, some which are not updated and other ones are updated. I will go through that one.
Yeah, the last email I sent you is having the schedule also. Okay, and you can ask me anytime on the group. Are you in the on the WhatsApp group?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, okay. So, I think we have discussed all the important issues as per the scheduled for today, and all the learners have also asked their queries and submissions they have given. So we can stop for now, and we'll have another session tomorrow. I
Thank you
thank
so much.
Dr. Yeah, thank you, for Dr. George. This was the first session, and we are looking forward for some more interesting sessions. Tomorrow again, we are going to collect on the same time, and after that, there is a change in the schedule but for tomorrow it's same. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. George.
Okay, thank you so much. God bless.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. But this man, before we leave,
Thank you.
Thank you so much, man.
want to know if it is going to start also tomorrow by 11:30 because the time. Hello.
Yes, what is the issue?
Yes, because the time